Yesterday has been a historic day in Indian economy when India and United Kingdom signed a free trade agreement. And on that background, if we have this book launch, India at 2047, Leading the Global Economic Order by SP Sharma ji, who is with me now. Let's talk to Mr. SP Sharma, sir. What is the idea that is behind this book? And when I say that India and UK had a long drawn strategy for free trade agreement and finally they achieved it, how do you read this development?
Yes, India started its new journey in 2014 with the announcement of Make in India. Thereafter, so many reforms related to ease of doing business, and we improved a lot in ease of doing business from 142 to 63. Thereafter, many reforms were there, plethora of reforms from the Startup India, Stand Up India, then the PLI scheme and Atmanirbhar Bharat. Now the government vision is to Viksit Bharat. So I was thinking about such reforms and India's performance in the domestic economy and the global economy. Then the idea came that there should be some book on this, that India is not only a GDP-driven economy. GDP is not only the parameter for India. We are broad-based country. We are progressing broad-based, and we are not progressing in the GDP numbers only. Our exports are also becoming robust and high every year. And thereafter, the welfare schemes and the poverty level is also reducing. And our agriculture sector is also becoming more and more strong each day. As I observed that the last decade was a great golden era for the agriculture sector also, and we grew at 3.8%. And other sectors like the ocean economy and the electronics exports and the defense exports, all these things are becoming more and more robust in the recent years with the support of the government and the various strategic policies and the calibrated steps. So this idea was on the basis of all these developments during the last many years to make the people aware about such policies and that India is a robust country, and India is not only the fastest moving economy, but India's recovery or India's progress is the broad based. As we witnessed many crises in the last 15-16 years, starting from the Lehman crisis, a global economic crisis, and thereafter the slowdown in many economies, thereafter coronavirus and the geopolitical developments. But India remained resilient. India remained resilient and also faced the challenges of the global headwinds. India's economic growth is very resilient, and India always grew more than 6% during the last many years. And if we go by the last 4 years, the growth rate is 7.5% on an average in the last 4 financial years.
Sir, let me interrupt you. In your book, you have also talked about the developments that India has taken. Two pointers that I'd like to draw your attention. One is 25 crore people coming above poverty line, and second, India is still sub $3,000 in per capita of GDP. How do you analyze this and the way forward? And Government of India has almost 30 plus schemes for the rural India, which means the welfare schemes and the money that is pumped into it.
Yes, you rightly said that India is a robust economy, and the GDP numbers are also increasing, and now we are more than $4 trillion economy, and still our per capita income, per capita GDP remains below 3,000. That is true because we are a large country. We are a country of 142 crore people. But the trajectory, I would say, earlier we were our GDP was doubling in at least 20 or 30 years before the reforms of the 1991. But now India's GDP doubles every 10 years. During the last 10 years, India's GDP doubled from 2014 to 2024. Now our GDP is going to double in the next 8 years. Thereafter, our GDP will be doubling in every 7 years. So this trajectory of the reforms or the growth of the Indian economy now will benefit the per capita income also with the more speed of our GDP, because as I said that Firstly, it took around 40 years to double India's income from 1991 to 1951 to 1990. It took around 40 years. But thereafter, with the reforms of 1991, the GDP doubled in 12 years. But now the more recent reforms, with the support of the more recent reforms, now the GDP doubled every 10 years. Going forward, with the support of the government, with the support of the reforms, the GDP is expected to double in the next 7 years. As we are anticipating that by 2030, our size of the economy will be 7 trillion. So now we are 4 trillion. So almost by 2032, we will be $8 trillion economy. So this speed of GDP or doubling of the GDP every 7 years will benefit the per capita income and the per capita income in the coming times. And I believe if we go by the numbers of the past and the present, our GDP will be more than $34 trillion by 2047 and per capita income will be more than $20,000 by that.
This book has come at the appropriate time when we have just been projected as crossing Japan and moving ahead of Japan in terms of global GDP numbers.
Yes, they are rightly. As now we are, people are talking about that India will be third largest economy in the coming years, but we are going to become a fourth largest economy recently. Now the GDP is projected at $4.3 trillion, which is larger than Japan. So we are now at the fourth position by end of the 2025, and I believe by 2027 we will be the third largest economy, surpassing the Germany also.
In Economist, when there is a conference of economists, we hardly see women. And in this panel, we saw two women, very distinguished women, in the book launch. Dr. Sujit Bhalla says that if the women come into workforce by a notch of 5 to 10%, the Indian economy will come up, and that was also touched briefly in this deliberations today. What is your assessment about that, sir?
Yes,
about women participation in the workforce?
Yes, women participation in the workforce is also increasing. And you rightly said that there are women in our dais and to release this book. That is true because now this development is the women-led development. This growth story, this India's journey towards Viksit Bharat will be led by the women as they are becoming more robust and they are participating in the economic growth and they are participating in the economic activity and their participation in workforce is also increasing. Though earlier it was not that much robust, now in the recent years we have witnessed this increased participation in the workforce. So going forward, the women-led growth will become more buzzword in the coming times, and there will be more and more participation by the women in the forums, in the industry activity, and in such kind of intellectual programs.
What is your gut feel about the women-led growth in rural and versus urban cluster? How do you analyze?
I think both the trajectories are going in the same way because in the rural areas, women are participating in the some micro units and the MSMEs. Small units, they are in the food processing, in the textiles, in the garments, in the textiles, in the apparels. In the larger cities or the metropolitan cities, women are more in the services sector, in the IT sector, or in the medical sciences. So both the trajectories are same, but the participation as rural women are more focused on because of their education or their well-being. They are very easy to participate in some manufacturing units or the small micro level units. But in the urban areas, with the more as they become more educated or more talented with the higher classes, they participate in the services sector. But the trajectories are same. Women participation in both the segments remains very robust and significant, and
this is a green spot.
Yes.
One last question, we cannot forget what happened overnight, and we know economists are worried. But then we saw what after the Indian government strikes Operation Sindoor, we have seen that the markets have remained stable today, and as an economist, what disturbance in one segment of India, how will that impact the whole country's growth, or do you see that that is going to not negate that?
Yes, you rightly said our markets are very resilient as our economy is resilient because we are growing in a good number and our forex reserves are very high. And our parameters, growth parameters like our manufacturing growth or the support of the MSMEs or the capital market is very strong. So such kind of developments like the geopolitical in the many countries like Russia, Ukraine or the Israel, Gaza or Israel, Iran or Lebanon, and now tussle with Pakistan is not going to impact the trajectory of the markets or the Indian economy because we are a strong economy because this happens in the many countries. But India's approach is very sustainable, very calibrated, and we have a strategic policies and going forward our resilience will remain strong and our markets will not be impacted by the such kind of events.
It was talked in this deliberation also that where to infuse capital funding in private sector because the government to government funding is almost okay, but at the same time private funding is little bit where India could improve or the government could focus and the private parties could come in like venture capital funding for private funding. Do you see there is a scope of improvement and when any analysis on that about short term and long term?
Yes, there is lot of scope to increase the private sector funding for the infrastructure and the agriculture sector. As I mentioned in my speech and my book that agriculture sector is a great sector of the Indian economy and inherent sector of the Indian economy which can become the IT sector of Indian economy in the coming time. Because now we are focusing more on the export trajectory of the agriculture sector and we are becoming robust, but still our exports are $54 billion. Which are less than 1% of the global agri and food processing exports, despite an agrarian economy. So if we increase this number to the level of $200 billion, $300 billion, and scope is to increase to the level of $500 billion, as there is a lot of demand in the global economy, then this will create a lot of employment opportunities and revenues for the private corporate sector also. So, but the need is at this juncture is to come forward and to invest more in the supply chain or the warehousing. Or the rural infrastructure to make it more robust and make it more supply oriented so that our supply chain in the rural segments or the agriculture and the food processing segments become strong and we are able to enhance our trajectory of exports to the next level.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for talking to Vision Television World, and also congratulations for this wonderful book that has come at the right time when India is at the cusp of becoming a Viksit Bharat from developing world. And with camera person Deepak, Pranab Prakhar reporting for Vision Television World.